Hello and welcome to The World Today. I'm Amarachi Ubani here. The stories and reports are tracking at this hour. Multiple people believed to have been involved in New Orleans car ramming attack. The authorities put death toll at 15. Police declared Tesla Cybertruck explosion at Las Vegas Trump Hotel an isolated incident. Plus, man dies from self-inflicted injuries after shooting dead 12 people in Montenegro. Let's begin The World Today. At least 15 people have lost their lives following an attack involving a car ramming into a crowd of people in New Orleans, a French Quarter, on New Year's Day. Authorities say the driver of the vehicle in question, a pickup truck, has been identified as Shamsuddin Jabbar, a U.S. Army veteran. He was killed in a shootout with police. U.S. President Joe Biden says Jabbar was inspired by the Islamic State group, and the FBI says the IS flag was found in the trunk of the vehicle. Victims of the attack have still been identified, but authorities say they include a former Princeton University football star and an aspiring nurse.
New Orleans woke up to the scene of a New Year disaster where 15 people lost their lives and dozens more were injured. A vehicle drove into a crowd on Bourbon Street in New Orleans at high speed. Witnesses say the driver got out of the vehicle and started firing a weapon, with police returning fire. Hundreds of people responded to the scene of the incident shortly after it occurred at 3:15 a.m. The driver who was killed in the shootout with the police has been identified as 42-year-old Shamsuddin Jabbar, a U.S.-born Army veteran from Texas. Police are working to investigate the attack as an act of terrorism after an Islamic State group flag was found attached to the truck.
Asking the public's help. We're asking anyone who has information, video, or pictures to provide it to the FBI. We have set up a digital tip line as well as our 1-800 number, 1-800-CALL-FBI. Please provide us with any information that can assist us in this investigation. Once again, thank you for your patience and assistance. For an updated statement or information, please check the FBI's website and our social media accounts.
Reacting to the attack on social media, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump called it an act of pure evil.
We're grieving today.
Meanwhile, President Joe Biden says the attacker was inspired by Islamic State group.
Here's what we know so far. The FBI has reported to me the killer was an American citizen, born in Texas. He served in the United States Army on active duty for many years. He also served in the Army Reserve until a few years ago. The FBI also reported to me that mere hours before the attack, he posted videos on social media indicating that he was inspired by ISIS, expressing a desire to kill. The ISIS flag was found in his vehicle, which he rented to conduct this attack. Possible explosives were found in the vehicle as well, and more explosives were found nearby. The situation is very fluid, and the investigation has a preliminary stage.
Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry says fixing security gaps will be a top priority.
We recognize we got a problem right here, right? We're going to fix it. It is going to be a top priority as we go into the Super Bowl in Mardi Gras, and the solution that we're going to come up with is going to be a permanent one. It's going to be placed into the standard operating procedure of having major events and securing that quarter.
The identities of the victims are still being established. Investigators also say they believe the suspect did not act alone, but no arrests have been made yet.
We have accounts of some members of the public who were there when the attack happened. One visitor to New Orleans at the time of the attack said they could hear loud revving of the engine of the truck. The attacker knocked over barriers and targeted pedicabs on the site.
And there were people everywhere, like I said.
In cars, too.
In cars, yeah. I don't know, my husband and I were discussing this, is how he managed to get as much momentum of speed. And like you just heard this squeal and like the rev of an engine and then this huge loud impact and then the people screaming. And debris, just metal, the sound of crunching metal and bodies. It's just like shock and disbelief. You just don't,
She asked me why somebody would.
Yeah, I
just don't understand why somebody would do that.
I don't understand why somebody would do that.
The pickup truck attack was not the only negative event on New Year's Day in the United States. So was a Tesla Cybertruck exploding right outside the Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas, killing the driver and injuring others. The FBI is still investigating whether the blast was an act of terrorism. These pictures, which we showed you just a while ago, were taken from a CCTV nearby, showing inside and outside the hotel. Also, a vehicle exploded and flames poured out of it as it sat just outside of the hotel. The Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas is part of the Trump Organization, the company of President-elect Donald Trump, who will return to the White House on January 20. Tesla CEO Elon Musk was a key backer of Trump in his 2024 presidential campaign and is also an advisor to the incoming president. He has said the blast is unrelated to the Cybertruck itself. Security officials in Las Vegas are confirming that one person died in the Cybertruck explosion. That's the driver. 7 other people were injured. The FBI is still investigating whether this was an act of terrorism. FBI Special Agent in Charge, Jeremy Schwartz, says the FBI has identified the person driving the vehicle, which had been rented in Colorado, but was not yet ready to publicly identify the victim. Our correspondent in Washington, Maria Bird, has been our eyes and ears on the ground. Maria, great to see you, and a happy new year to you. These are unusual events in the United States happening on auspicious occasions. That's the New Year's Day. The Israeli authorities say that 2 citizens were hit in the attack in New Orleans, and authorities feel that the attacker did not act alone. Have authorities, however, said anything that might point towards the fact that these attacks, especially the one in New Orleans, were planned?
Yes, you're exactly correct. It is believed this was not a sole responsible person for this attack. We know we've seen mass shootings in the U.S., unfortunately, over the past few years, and they've typically been lone individuals that have gone out and conducted these type of horrific attacks. And typically, they might be seen as domestic areas of violence, but not necessarily terrorist attacks. And these are really being potentially investigated as terrorist attacks. The president's been very clear not to state that we are definitely looking at potential domestic terrorism, but he is stating that we are continuing to investigate these circumstances. Now, as you said, there is further investigation around were there other individuals involved in the planning of this attack. And the greater question is really around the potential of having these 2 incidents connected, because as you stated earlier, they were just a few hours into the new year in the United States. And so as a result of that, it does bring to mind potentially some connectivity between the 2, especially since both these individuals were former U.S. military personnel. So that brings greater cause to look further into these. Now, the president will be calling forth a meeting with Homeland Security individuals at the White House at 12:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is around 6:15 Nigerian time. And so they will be discussing the situation at that time. They will be looking to see what new evidence has been brought forth, what additional information has been brought forth. Obviously, most of the information at this time is secure, as they don't want to leak out any information that could potentially bring greater risk to Americans. As we know, there's heightened security across the United States, especially being as though we are in the height of one of the most celebrated holidays in the U.S. of New Year's. And the New Orleans area was preparing for one of the largest sporting events yesterday, which has now been postponed until today.
And I know that they're trying to rule out these acts of terrorism so they don't trigger fear of unnecessary fear in people. and having people behave irrationally as a result of what has happened. But we have raised the idea before, Maria, with mass shootings, of course, as well, and specific attacks like these, the issue of domestic terrorism, more so when in the first attack, the attack in New Orleans, the driver had the IS flag visibly seen in his trunk.
Yes, as you stated, the ISIS flag was one of the first things that they found, and that brought great cause and warning and concern to law enforcement in New Orleans and obviously the federal law enforcement as well. So that's what's going to be further investigated. There was very quickly investigation around what he'd been posting on social media or any type of online entity. And so they were able to find videos of him stating that he was inspired by ISIS. And as it's been stated, he was a military personnel in Afghanistan. And so his exposure to ISIS, his connectivity to ISIS, I think is what's continuing right now to be a further investigation and what they're looking to see what could be the cause of that as well. Now, we also know he had some financial troubles, some family troubles over the last few years, which seemed to cause a spiral because several years ago, even as early as 2020, they did see videos of him as a real estate personnel, someone that was a professional real estate agent and had seemed to have no real signs of this type of potential terror or potential attack in the United States.
And I wonder the kind of treatment that this will be given. I know that the authorities are paying very close attention to every detail from this attack. But what is the difference, Maria, when they say when it is an act of terrorism and then when it is not an act of terrorism? It kind of looks similar, the way the incidents are treated.
Well, this is going to definitely potentially look different. What we know is after 9/11, security changed drastically in the United States. We can guarantee that New Orleans streets especially are very different today. With the type of security measures that will be put in place at the football event this afternoon will be very different than what was planned up to 2 days ago. They will be having heightened security. It is speculated that if we do find some type of domestic terrorism, that we could potentially see changes in security as we did after 9/11. There were very grave differences in the type of security measures that were underway in the United States, whether it was with the airlines, whether it was going into certain buildings after 9/11. And so that is what is speculated, that potentially we could see those type of differences and what we've seen obviously after 9/11.
About the Cybertruck explosion, Maria, why would authorities be keeping the identity of the driver? I mean, he's already dead. Could this mean that this was not a target? This was an attack not targeted at anyone specifically, or this was, a malfunction of the vehicle, or perhaps an external effect on the vehicle itself causing the explosion?
Well, what we know is that there were bombs in the vehicle. When you look at the vehicle after it had exploded, you can see detonated bombs and types of materials that would have allowed for someone that was looking to build some sort of ammunition. So that was one reason that they have kept this identity. But the other reason that they've stated is because of the immediate family. We don't know whether or not they have been in touch with the immediate family. And so that is always the number one course of action for law enforcement once these type of attacks or these type of incidents occur. And so until they're able to, I guess, clear out all of the areas that they have to address before releasing that information of who he is, they're still underway in taking care of that. And additionally, because they're also trying to rule out the connectivity between the two incidents.
What more do we know about the attacker in the New Orleans event? He's only identified as a U.S. citizen from Texas. He's also formerly an Army veteran who once served in Afghanistan. Are they perhaps looking into a history of PTSD?
They have not yet stated that. They have stated his challenges personally in his life that occurred over the last few years, which they're trying to see if there's any link there. Obviously, I'm sure his family is being investigated and being questioned as to if they saw any signs of this. And to your point around PTSD, we know that's a very common challenge that many military personnel face when they come back home from war. And so I'm sure they will begin to continue to look through his medical records to see if there were any diagnosis of that previously.
Maria, thanks again for speaking with us. A bleak look into 2025, but hopefully the rest of the days in January will be of pleasant stories. We have the inauguration of President-elect Donald Trump to look forward to, so we'll be seeing more of you this month, Maria.
Thank you.
I signed off into the small town of Montenegro, where a man has shot dead 12 people in a rampage. This happened earlier today. He died after self-inflicted injuries. The attacker has been identified. He is 45-year-old Alexander Ako Martinovic. He had killed 4 people when he opened fire after a brawl at a restaurant in Centinje on Wednesday afternoon. He then shot dead 8 people, including 2 children, at 3 locations. The victims had close links to the gunman. Slobodan Markovic, a Centinje resident, described the suspect as a good friend and could not imagine what made him do it. Police say Martinovic had been drinking heavily and had a history of illegal weapons possession. The incident is the second shooting in 3 years in the same town, 38 kilometers west of the capital, Podgorica. In 2022, a gunman killed 10 people, including 2 children, before he was shot dead. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he's preparing to re-establish diplomatic ties between his country and Syria and cooperation with international organizations. He also said in a video message earlier today that as a result of a visit of Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andrei Sybiha to the Middle East, Ukraine will increase trade with Lebanon. He says Ukraine currently has $400 million in agricultural exports to the country and is preparing to increase this at least twice. Relations between Syria and Ukraine have existed since 1992, except for a 2-year period from 2022 to 2024, when they were severed following Syria's recognition of Russian-occupied Donetsk and Luhansk regions. Relations have been reestablished since after the collapse of the Assad regime. The Ukrainian embassy in Lebanon currently protects Ukrainian interests in Syria. Ukraine's relations with Lebanon were established on December 8, 1993, and covers political, economic, and cultural spheres. Ukraine exports agricultural products to Lebanon, in particular grain, which is an important element of Lebanon's food security. Lebanon, in return, supplies Ukraine with fruits, textile, and stone products. Joining us now in reviewing the reviving of ties between Ukraine and Syria and Ukraine and Lebanon is international relations expert Dr. Ade Omale. He joins us from Abuja. Dr. Omale, thank you so much for joining us on the program, and a Happy New Year to you.
Yeah, Happy New Year, Amarachi and all the Channels television team.
Dr. Male, it might seem strange to us that Ukraine is reviving relations with these Middle Eastern countries. What is the first thought that comes to mind for you learning of this?
Well, for me, I think it's a very good move on the part of the HTS trying to reach out to other parts of the world, especially that Russia has been one of the key allies of the Assad regime. It is very, very instructive that Ukraine is seizing this opportunity to repair its relationship with the new Syrian government. I think Zelensky will want to use this window to spite the Russians, who have given a lot of support to the Assad regime. I think it is the way to go. The new regime in Syria needs to engage more with the outside world to gain legitimacy. With this move now, just like you said during the prologue, the relationship between Ukraine and Syria broke down when the Russian backed Assad regime recognized some of the regions in Donetsk and some other places annexed by the Russian invasion. So I think Ukraine is playing a mind game. With this rapprochement that they are making with Syria, it sends a clear signal that Russia has completely lost its grip on Syria, and Ukraine wants to take that opportunity.
When you look at the history of both Ukraine and Syria and their relations with each other, you see the Assad regime had been supportive of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, giving recognition to territories occupied by Russia, Donetsk and Luhansk. Do you think the new Syrian regime will deviate from Assad's position of recognizing these territories as Ukrainian territories? As Russian territories?
Yeah, the new regime certainly has been distancing itself from the Assad regime. It's clear that the HTS led by Jolani is trying to bring a new path in the governance of Syria. And you can see they are meeting with the various interest groups within Syria and also trying to have inroad into the international system by trying to wrong most of the things that the Assad regime did. The Assad regime has been one of the key allies of Iran that has been also backed by Russia, that have been supporting most of the terrorist groups that have been holding both in Lebanon and also other parts of the Middle East. With the change now that has taken place in Syria, the geopolitics of the Middle East is changing very fast. And Russia and even Iran, they are losing grip. And with what is going on now, with what the relationship that is being restored between Ukraine and Russia, a lot of realignment is going to take place in the Middle East.
And so you feel that the HTS regime will support Ukraine's resistance against Russia's invasion?
Well, morally, it will happen, but I don't think it has to do with. Yes, morally, they don't have much to offer in terms of military assistance or in terms of supplying weapons or even supporting with troops. But I think morally, it will really have an impact on the Russian invasion of Ukraine in the area of weakening them morally, and also because of the level of influence Russia has wielded in the Middle East, it will water down their influence. I think this reconciliation between Syria and Ukraine will clearly pass a message to Russia that its power is waning, not just in the Middle East, but globally.
The Russian President, Vladimir Putin, I'm sure, is aware of Ukraine's new decision to revive these ties with Syria. He's already hosting the Syrian president, former president, Bashar al-Assad. And, we've explored this topic before, how long he expects to be a host of the Syrian president, if the Syrian president hopes to return to Syria someday. And I'm sure that President Putin is closely watching what is going on with these Middle Eastern partners. What do you think he could do about it?
Well, there's little Putin can do. He did all his best to save the Assad regime, and it was not possible until he was swept out of power. He has also granted asylum to the Assad regime. So he cannot do more than that. The Russian leadership has been trying to woo the new leadership in Syria. They have been doing a lot to see how they are in talks with the new leadership in Syria. But I think the new leadership in Syria will view the talks with suspicion because one thing I know is that they may not be able to trust Putin going forward, because Putin was very much involved in the war in Syria, and they will not want to lower their guards so that they can be taken unawares. Russia was very much involved in the Syrian conflict, and now that the HTS has become victorious, they are not going to trust Putin or whatever he's going to say going forward. I have that firm belief. So Rather, they prefer to make new friends and to make new alliances and new coalition to move Syria forward. They believe that, I think the HTS, from what I see them doing, they have a lot of confidence more in the West, and they are ready to engage with the EU, the United States, and even Israel to be able to assist in the reconstruction of Syria. So they will not want to engage because of the role Russia has played in the Syrian conflict.
Yeah, we're seeing that shifting of ties between the Syrian leadership and the West. The leader appearing in a suit the other day when he met with officials from Turkey. So as for relations between Ukraine and Lebanon, these are two war-torn countries already. They do appear to already have cordial relations established since 1998, but I wonder how exactly this would rub off on Israel, which I'm sure has some relations with Ukraine and is also closely watching this seeming revival of ties between the two countries. The Israeli Defense Forces already in Lebanon trying to quell the Hezbollah and other rebel groups that are fighting against Israel. I'm sure that, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu could have, some thoughts on what's going on.
Yeah, don't forget that the government in Lebanon has a very good relationship with Israel and with the West. Hezbollah as an organization is loyal to Iran and has been the major bone of contention. Hezbollah does not form the mainstream government in Lebanon. So Zelensky trying to enter into diplomatic relations with the Lebanese government, which they have had over the years. Ukraine and Lebanon has had a very, very good relationship for quite some years. And I think it is in the interest of both countries to continue to maintain this relationship in the area of agriculture and in the area of trade and so on. But Hezbollah being designated as a terrorist organization has come in between that relationship. And I think now that Hezbollah has been isolated, the Lebanese government should seize this opportunity to assert itself by maintaining close relationship between Israel, Ukraine, and other countries that desire to partner with Lebanon to also rebuild Lebanon. In the past, Lebanon was referred to as Beirut was referred to as the almost like Dubai in the Middle East. But with the activities of Hezbollah, Beirut and several parts of Lebanon have been destroyed. We hope that with this new development in the Middle East, the Lebanese government should seize the initiative, create the buffer zone between Israel and southern Lebanon to ensure that the Hezbollah activities is curtailed, and also enhance their relationship with Ukraine, because Ukraine has a lot to give to Lebanon in the areas of supplying of agricultural products, in the area of helping them to overcome their food security challenges and so on. With the dynamics in the Middle East, both in Syria and in Lebanon, it is clear that both Israel and the West have had a lot of mileage in trying to assure the Arab people that that they really mean no harm to them. Don't forget that the first country that condemned the invasion of Ukraine by the Russian was the Lebanese government. They not only condemned it, they also insisted that Russia must withdraw all their troops from Ukraine. That was as far back as almost 2 years ago. So the Lebanese government has been trying to have a working diplomatic relationship with the Ukrainian government. It is only the Hezbollah that has continued to, because The Hezbollah is backed by Iran, and Iran is also very friendly with Russia. The Hezbollah belongs to that axis of evil, as it's being referred to. That is why this development now will embolden the Lebanese government to enter into proper diplomatic relations and take its rightful place. The Hezbollah has done a lot of damage to the capacity of the Lebanese government to wield both political and economic power within Lebanon. And now that Hezbollah has been greatly degraded, it is an opportunity for the Lebanese government to restore diplomatic relations with countries that wish to do business with Lebanon.
Dr. Adoye Omale, thank you so much for speaking with us, and Happy New Year to you.
Thank you very much. I'm always pleased to be with Channels Television.
An Israeli airstrike has killed at least 10 Palestinians in a tent encampment sheltering displaced families in the southern Gaza Strip. In an attack that happened earlier today, 10 people, including women and children, were killed in a tent in Al-Mawasi, designated as a humanitarian area in western Khan Yunis, according to the medics. 15 people were also wounded, the medics say. The Israeli military has not commented on either of the issues. The Director General of Gaza's police department, Mahmoud Salah, and his aide, Hussam Shawan, were killed in the airstrike. Israel has killed more than 45,000 Palestinians in the war in Gaza, according to health officials. In the meantime, Israeli military vehicles have been seen moving within the buffer zone in the Golan Heights as part of ongoing operations on the opposite side of the fence that have persisted since the fall of the Syrian Bashar al-Assad regime. From the Israeli-occupied area, soldiers patrol the gates to the United Nations-administered area of separation, utilizing a variety of vehicles. The United Nations Security Council extended a long-running peacekeeping mission in the Golan Heights for 6 months and expressed concern that military activities in the area could escalate tensions. Israeli officials have described the move as a limited and temporary measure to ensure the security of Israel's borders, but have given no indication of when the troops might be withdrawn. Former Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, who had taken an independent line against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and far-right political allies, has announced his resignation from the Israeli parliament. Gallant was fired in November by Netanyahu after months of disagreements over the conduct of the war against Hamas in Gaza. In a televised statement released on January 1st, he said, "Just as it is on the battlefield, so it is in public service. There are moments in which one must stop, assess, and choose a direction in order to achieve the goals." Gallant had often broken ranks with Netanyahu and his coalition allies of far-right and religious parties, including over exemptions granted to ultra-Orthodox Jewish men from serving in the conscript military, a hot-button issue. In March of 2023, Netanyahu first fired Gallant after he urged a halt to a highly contested government to cut the Supreme Court's powers. His dismissal triggered mass protests, and Netanyahu backtracked. Away from the Middle East, demonstrators supporting and opposing impeached South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol held rival protests near the presidential palace today as he faces an unprecedented arrest over his short-lived martial law attempt. One pro-Yoon protester said arresting him would be illegal, while another called on Yoon to quickly accept his arrest and step down as soon as possible to bring an end to the current political turmoil. A court on Tuesday approved a warrant for Yoon's arrest, which could potentially make him the first sitting president to be detained as part of investigations over allegations he masterminded an insurrection by trying to impose martial law. The Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials is leading a joint team of investigators that includes the police and prosecutors and has until next Monday, this January 6th, to execute the arrest warrant. It's unclear when and how the CIO will make the arrest and whether the Presidential Security Service, which has blocked access to investigators with search warrants to Yoon's office and official residence before, or try to stop an arrest. Staying in South Korea, but to another development, acting President Choi Sang-myong says immediate action must be taken if a special inspection of all Boeing 737-800 aircraft operated in the country finds any issues as authorities ramp up a probe into the deadly air crash. The conversion of data from the Jeju Air 7C2216 cockpit voice recorder to audio file should be completed by Friday, January 3rd, according to Choi. This could provide critical information on the final minutes of the doomed flight. All 175 passengers and four of six crew members were killed on Sunday when the Jeju Air jet belly landed at Muan International Airport in the country's southwest and slammed into an earth and concrete embankment, bursting into flames. Two crew members located near the tail of the Boeing 737-800 survived. Honduran President Xiomara Castro has warned that mass expulsions of Honduran migrants from the United States could jeopardize military cooperation between the two countries. During a New Year's Day address, President Castro expressed hope for constructive dialogue with the incoming administration of Donald Trump. She also urged the new administration not to expel Honduran migrants from the U.S. Castro said the U.S. bases in Honduras have been maintained for decades without any payment from Washington. We're off on another break on the world today. Still ahead. Lagos welcomes the first babies of the year 2025 across 3 general hospitals. We'll have more of this adorable bounties of joy. Stay with us.
Keeping an eye on diseases emerging and re-emerging. Observe the body respond to the miracle of treatment. Watching requirements of medicine modified and the way we look at health evolve.
Bone marrow transplantation is not surgery. I always like to reiterate that. It's actually like transfusing blood into your vein.
Keep pace with new trends and find the answers. See the full picture on Health Matters, because you deserve to know.
Dear friends of former U.S. President Jimmy Carter have been sharing their sincere gratitude for the impact he had on their lives after the 100-year-old passed away at his home in Plains, Georgia on Sunday. During his term, Carter struggled with a bad economy and the Iran hostage crisis, but he brokered a peace deal between Israel and Egypt and later received the Nobel Peace Prize for his humanitarian work. Superintendent of the Jimmy Carter National Historical Park in Plains, Georgia, Jill Stuckey, said she had been a friend to the Carter family ever since she met them 30 years ago during the 1994 Cherry Blossom Festival in Washington, D.C. She is grateful she got to spend so much time with her heroes.
Legacy of service. That's what he and Rosalind both lived for. And it's hard for me to talk about one without talking about the other because they were inseparable. 77 and a half years of marriage. And they were in sync on pretty much everything. They wanted to live as long as they possibly could to help as many people as they possibly could. And they did it. I am one of the luckiest people in the world. I got to spend 30 years with my heroes. And I love them more today than the first day I met them. And that's just unheard of. One, to get to spend any time with your heroes, but two, admire them after you've known them day in, day out, in ups and downs. But they walk the walk, and they were just amazing people till their last days. Our household loved President Carter. And so when I met my husband, one of the things that attracted to him was that he was friends with Jimmy Carter. So I don't know if it was the reason I married him, but it was up there. Plus, he was a great guy.
And former Nigerian President Chief Olusegun Obasanjo has joined other world leaders in sharing his memories of the late U.S. President Jimmy Carter. In an exclusive interview with Channels Television, the former president, who was head of state in 1978, when Mr. Carter first visited Nigeria, said the vacuum created by his absence is irreplaceable.
When the election was, he lived up to 100 years. And it doesn't matter how long your friend lives, you still want to have your friend around. That I am alive today, President Jimmy Carter contributed to it. The relationship of Nigeria and the U.S. up till today, President Carter made a tremendous contribution. The situation, particularly in the area of decolonization and eradication of apartheid in Africa, he made a significant contribution. And for that reason, I personally feel I've lost a good friend. And I believe that Nigeria has also lost a friend and somebody who understood our country in his lifetime. And Africa has definitely lost an advocate for Africa, a humanitarian, a humanist, if I can put it that way. And the world has lost a man who believes in fairness and justice and equity in the international affairs.
Former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo. Here in Lagos, the wife of the state governor, Dr. Ibijoke Sanwo-Olu, has welcomed the first babies of the year 2025 across 3 general hospitals with a pledge to further impact the health of women and children with various initiatives. The general hospitals visited by the First Lady, that's the Lagos State First Lady, include Ikorodu General Hospital, Ifako-Ijaye General Hospital, and Isolo General Hospital. The First Lady presented gift items to them and restated the administration's commitment to the delivery of quality healthcare services to Lagos residents.
The cry of a newborn baby is one that expectant mothers look forward to. And for these new mothers, it's music to their ears as they welcome their babies on the first day of January 2025. Some of the hospitals in Lagos State that welcome these precious bundles of joy include the General Hospital, Ikorodu. The family of Mr. and Mrs. Eniola Olaoluwa take the crown of the first baby of the year, with the baby girl delivered at 12:34 a.m.
I give birth around 12:34 a.m. Today, 1st of January 2025, by the grace of God. And the baby is a baby girl, a star baby girl, to the glory of God.
It's just an amazing moment, and it's something I didn't see coming. And I would say we give glory, honor, and adoration back unto God Almighty, who has counted us worthy to be the one, to be the recipient of this year Baby of the Year award. To God alone be the glory.
The wife of the Lagos State Governor, Dr. Ibijoke Sanwo-Olu, alongside the Deputy Governor's wife, Oluremi Hamzat, visit several hospitals to receive the babies. The Chief Medical Director commends the state government for the facelift as a hospital which helps the facility offer improved services, especially maternal and child care.
Your Excellency, your unwavering passion and support for the healthcare system and family in Lagos State has given healthcare delivery in the state a quantum leap under this administration, making it a model for other states to rigorously emulate.
State Special Advisor on Health, Dr. Kemi Ogunyemi, says the New Year baby celebration is a tradition that has come to stay and appeals to Lagos residents to register with the State Health Insurance Scheme, Hilera Iko.
I would like to appeal to everyone to enroll annually with the Lagos State Health Scheme, insurance scheme, to enhance accessibility to quality healthcare services without any socio-economic barrier.
At General Hospital Ifako Ijaye, a set of twins was delivered by Mrs. Mary Osayomi. First baby female delivered at 12:14 a.m., second baby male at 12:15 a.m., and the father of the children is grateful to God for the delivery.
We went for scan and the result showed that my wife was carrying twins. So then since then, at first we were like, this present economy, twins and all that, so how are we going to go? Then we just had to encourage ourselves and so to God be the glory. It was God to control, and she gave birth today, and here she is. We are appreciating God for the gift of the babies.
For the SSG of Lagos State, the delivery of the first set of twins in Ifako Ijaye General Hospital signifies double blessings for the state.
The arrival of these twins signifies that this year, 2025, Lagos State and all Lagosians shall have and enjoy all good things of life in double manifold.
Parents of newborn babies do not have to worry about taking their baby for national identity number registration because they can now obtain it before leaving the hospital.
I want to rejoice with the people in Ifako Ijaye, especially Ifako General Hospital. Thank you to the wonderful team working with their medical director, Dr. Mustafa.
When a child is born in Lagos State, when we do their registration, we give them their NIN. It's not like when they get older, they have to go and kill like us. They get their NIN immediately.
After 8 years of waiting, the Lawal family is happy to have their own bundle of joy.
I'm so overwhelmed. I don't even know what to say. I'm very happy. I'm very, very happy. And I'm really glad. Like, I was the one that gave birth to the first baby of the year.
It's been 8 years. I've been praying so hard to God to have a baby. I wasn't even expecting it this time. But I'm just so happy. I'm speechless for you. I'm speechless. And I really appreciate all what I'm receiving from Lagos State, from the First Lady.
The Lagos State government says it's committed to advancing maternal and child health care in the state. Here's wishing the families of the newborn babies the grace to nurture the latest additions to the families.
As we end the program, you're looking at fireworks from Cape Town, South Africa, where they also ushered in January 1st, 2025, yesterday. I tell you, the fireworks were on display in the city all over. You can hear people in the background also screaming in excitement. Some 35,000 people were expected at the waterfront in the city for the celebration. People were, however, urged to leave their minors at home for safety. There were already rules on the ground that fireworks not explode within 200 meters of any hospital, clinic, petrol station, old age home, nursing home, or animal welfare organization, inside any building or on a public street without permission to do so. And that's the world today. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani.